Hello.
Hi, Harold.
Hi, Bernie. That book's very good.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, I looked up some of the stuff. You learn quite a bit. I'm still in the first part, but you learn quite a bit about Africa. When was it written? It seems like in the 70s, because he calls it Rhodesia, not Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I think it was the early 80s. It was
Oh,
published 82 or 84.
uh-huh. Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Good. And you learn a little bit about archaeology and
Yeah, yeah,
can you imagine finding a wealthy guy to fund it? Like you or David Hager. Let's do an
exactly.
archaeologic dig. Here's $1 million.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I
David's
saw it.
famous now. He's all over the media.
I saw that he was being interviewed in Israel. He's
Yeah, yeah.
first Mark says, "Oh, he's offering $1 million." No,
No, what he told
he's
me what happened.
gathering together a group.
He has 50 people who offered to put up money.
Wow.
Yeah, which yeah, at least 100,000 each. So that's what's
50 or 15? 15?
no, people have to put up 100,000 each,
Yeah.
but he has 50 people.
Wow.
Yeah, but who knows what's gonna? And they gave him a deadline. I think tomorrow is the deadline.
And which Arab is going to step up and put his life on the line?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, need a bulletproof vest.
Yeah, true.
Who knows how many are still alive? It's very sad. And if you said that one girl committed suicide,
Really, I didn't see that.
yeah, she survived the Nova Festival, but she was just so traumatized. Yesterday was on her birthday. She committed suicide.
You probably saw her picture on the wall when you went to
Yeah, yeah.
the
Ay, ay, ay.
I just finished reading a book which I couldn't put down called One Day in October. It's 40 stories of heroes on October 7th. Amazing
Wow.
book.
Yeah, I heard about that book.
I've read everything there is about, almost everything. This book is something special. So
Who's
Who's the author? Who's the author?
I don't remember. Two authors.
One Day in October. It's One Day in October.
One Day in October. Yeah. Just came out literally. I couldn't put it down. I literally stayed up all night reading it. So hardly recommend it. And everything you've heard and read, which of course we all have, it's all great, but this is something special from all perspectives. Not from Jewish, Arab, Zaka driver. It's got Rabbi Doron Peretz's son's full complete story.
Hello.
So definitely worth reading.
Good evening.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah.
Where are we? 308. What page? 308.
Right.
Machshava.
Finishing up Shnai Mikra Ve'echad Targum, the Machshava concept on that. We saw in source 1 that the Gemara promises lengthy days, Arichas Yomim, to one who fulfills the mitzvah Shnai Mikra Ve'echad Targum. A number of other sources indicate that one received great blessing for performing this mitzvah properly. The Or Zarua Arishon cites the same midrash quoted above, source 27, that also says reading Shnai Mikra can increase a person's Yiras Shamayim. Vami b'midrash Gimel Dvarim Tziva Rabbi Esbanav. The midrash says that Rabbi Yehuda Nossi instructed his children b'shas shenifta when he passed l'beis olomo Gimel Yiras Shamayim. 3 things that increase Yiras Shamayim. Eluain Shel Yiras Shamayim. Al toichel lechem b'Shabbos ad shetigmar kol parsha. One of them is don't eat your Shabbos Suda until you finish reading the parsha, what you're supposed to read. The Kaf HaChaim writes that the level of holiness of one's neshama yisera on Shabbos is increased if one reads Shnai Mikra. Ayin Mati Yehuda Os Tes Masher Kosev B'Shem HaMekubalim They kriya shnai mikra vechatargum. If you read shnai mikra vechatargum, yiski adam lachanas toisefes neshama yizteira. That it helps the neshama yizteira. Yamshich alav ruch tar milmala. He brings down a Holy Spirit. The Piskei Tshuva summarizes some of the physical and spiritual benefits. V'yizke l'chaim tovim metukim. He'll have a good life. Uskula ilu yiresh shamayim. Ulamshich alav ruach tar, to have the Holy Spirit. Utrace umagen, a shield. Who shelo yikashel b'averes chamus, that he won't fall in the trap of severe averos. This Kriyas HaTorah Machshav has been reproduced. We learned it originally. What is the reason for the institution of Kriyas HaTorah? Why is it necessary for us to read a full portion of the Torah on a weekly basis? Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik beautifully explains the significance of this mitzvah as being an opportunity to reenact and re-experience the giving of the Torah, Har Sinai. Kriyas HaTorah b'tzibur, ba'al arak l'shem limud. It's not just for learning Torah. Kim gam l'shem sidur p'gisham elokim. It provides an interaction with Hashem. Like happened at Sinai. It's like a new Matan Torah. A reenactment of the wondrous standing underneath the burning mountain. It returns this experience. Every time the Sefer Torah is taken out, we should have this feeling. In his Shiurim L'Zech Rabbi Mori, he says, Kriyas HaTorah b'tzibur zah hi im chavias amidah lifnei Shechina ki b'mamin Har Sinai. Reading the Torah is like Maimon Har Sinai. Yesh b'tofa azot, it's in this demonstration mishum sheyazra mefagesh ben hamifgash ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael. We reenact the meeting of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Klal Yisrael. V'hu tamun b'chovah. In the obligation, b'shamoah kriya, listening to the reading, tzarich hatzibur l'tzar b'nafsho, the tzibur has to paint for themselves an image, kilu achshav haTorah nitna misinai, that the Torah is being given now b'kolot uvakim kol shofar chazak miyad. According to Rav Soloveitchik, every time we hear the Torah, each time we hear the Torah being read in shul as a special encounter with Hashem, in which we can re-experience the giving of the Torah again with all the fanfare. Consequently, we should not want to squander the opportunity by spending the time speaking with others or engage in other tasks. Rather, we must focus our energy on listening to the Torah being read and on receiving the Torah in Har Sinai. Rav Soloveitchik mentioned another component of Kriyas HaTorah. Yisha'olim l'Torah, when we are called up in an aliyah, we make a bracha. Baruch Hu Hashem. Why don't we start with Baruch Hu Hashem, the Asher Baruch Rabanu? Yesh b'Kriyas HaTorah mishum gilu Shechina, because there's a revelation of Shechina. When we experience closeness of Hashem, he has to sanctify the name of Hashem. Ha'uvda ki birchas haTorah matkilas b'kedusha. I'm here at Baruch Hu Hashem Avarch. We start with a kaddish. Mefitza or bara al ma'otah shel Kriyas HaTorah. It shines a clear light on the reading of the Torah. Shiba atzma pu'ulat kabbalat ol malchut shamayim. It's in fact an act of kabbalas malchus. Thus, in addition to the Kriyas HaTorah serving an enactment of the giving of the Torah, Rav Soloveitchik says it's designed to be a communal acceptance of the Ol Malchut Shamayim. For this reason, the brachos recited prior to the reading begin with Baruch Hu Hashem Mevorach. May we all merit to achieve this lofty levels through our Kriyas HaTorah experience.
You know, this is, this, for Shnaya Mikra, this is an interesting week because you technically only have one day, because until Thursday, the Parsha is V'zos HaBracha. I actually asked Rabbi Rosenberg about it, could you be Mavir Sedra now for Bereshis, because otherwise you just have one day. And he said yes, but it's pretty rare, but that's what you have this week.
Right? You just have one day. Well, we've had Zois Bracha for like 3 weeks now.
Right, right. It happens sometimes.
Right.
That one's easy, but it was Bereshis, of course, much longer. Anyway, so
Right.
that was
Okay, page 327. Let's get into Kiddush on Shabbos. We've been discussing the halachos of Erev Shabbos. Include Achana, lighting candles, accepting Shabbos, and the Tfilos. The next year, which will continue to volume 17, will address the mitzvah of Kiddush, which is recited Friday night before the Shabbos meal. The practice of reciting Kiddush Friday night stems from a biblical mitzvah to declare the sanctity of Shabbos. This positive mitzvah is derived from the verse, Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. As we shall see, most poskim maintain that the biblical obligation consists merely of verbally sanctifying Shabbos. The requirement to do it over wine is rabbinic. The source for the obligation of reciting Kiddush is in Masechta Psachim, Arvi Psachim. Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadesh, L'Kadsho, Zachreu Al Hayayin B'Knisaso. You should remember it on wine when it enters. The Gemara states that Kiddush must be recited over wine. It's not immediately clear from where we see this from the Psukim. Tosfos explains that the root remember, Zecher, is often used regarding wine, but conclude that this is merely an asmachta, an illusion. The Hebrew word Zachor is better translated mention rather than remember, is what the footnote says. In fact, there's no mitzvah deraisa to use wine. Rather, the mitzvah deraisa consists of reciting the bracha, sanctifying Shabbos, that follows the bracha on the wine, though it does not include reciting the Vayachulu paragraph before the bracha. So it's the bracha that we say after the Boy Priyat Gefen, that ends in Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. Zochrei Al Hayayin, Dischira Ksiv Al Hayayin, Zichro Kiyein Levanon, Nazkira Dodecha Miyayin. So many of the psukim with the word Zecher also has the word Yayin. Hainu Zechira, Hainu Kiddush. The Zechira that's being talked about here, says Tosfos, is Kiddush. The Vayachulu lo matzino lakos elabat fila. Vayachulu, we don't find this to be needed to be said over kos. We see it in the Amidah, like in the Shmona Esrei of Friday night. Kidomer b'Shabbos kuf yutes. V'lo nitaken al hakos el lo tzibona v'neveiso. We do vaychulu with the cup is that the children in the family did not daven mariv. They didn't recite vaychulu. So we're doing it for that reason. V'nira de kiddush al yayin asmachtahi. It's an illusion. V'ada amar b'mi shemeso nashim chayavos b'kiddush hayom dvar Torah. That in the Torah the women are obligated to recite kiddush. I don't have to kiddush hayom. That's the recitation of the words. Aval alayin lo havi ela midrabanan. Midrabanan, the wine is only an obligation midrabanan. The Rambam also rules that Kiddush on the Torah level includes only verbally sanctifying Shabbos, and Chazal added the requirement to use wine. Mitzvahs azay min Torah l'kadosh yom Shabbos b'dvorim. Shenemar, Zachor yom hakadsho, klomer zachrehu, zechira shvach, remember him with praise, v'kiddush, and sanctification. The tzarich l'zachrei b'knisas of Yitzis. So you have to remember it or mention it on when Shabbos enters and when it leaves. B'knisaso b'kiddush hayom. U'v'tziyaso b'avdol. Midivrei sofrim l'kadosh l'yayin l'avdil. So the Rambam seems to suggest that Havdalah is also midoraisa, because you notice he includes it with the dvarim, with the kiddush of the Friday night. He connects the knisaso to the tziyaso, and now the Rambam moves on to midivrei sofrim is to make kiddush on wine, ulahavdil l'yayin. But it seems from the Rambam that Havdalah is also midoraisa.
But we don't say Zohar on Friday night. So that's Kiddush on Shabbos.
No, Zohar means kiddush. It means Zochrei. You mention Shabbos alayayin. We don't.
Section Nemar. We don't.
Where do you see Shenemar?
Shenemar
Shenemar Zachoret
Yeah.
Yom HaShabbat L'Kachor. That's in the Aseret Adibros.
Right.
So that mitzvah is the mitzvah of Kiddush B'Dvorim, that by reciting the words of sanctifying the Shabbos, you've.
But that's Friday night we do that, no?
That's Friday night.
But we don't say Zohar.
Because the Ram, we don't. Shenemar, it's just quoting the pasuk, the source.
I know.
For Kiddush, we don't.
Okay. It didn't make it. It made it into the day. I mean, the day Kiddush, you say Zohar, Shabbos, L'Kachor, she's showing it up.
It made it, but remember that Kiddush is not the Oraisa. That Kiddush is
Right.
Kiddushay Rabbah. All you have to do there is say Boi Pri HaGefen. You don't really have to say Zachar Yom HaShabbat. We do. The Siddur tells us to do it, but your Yotzei the Kiddush Niyom, which is the Boi Pri HaGefen, which we're going to learn.
Okay.
And there's no requirement to say Zachar Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho as part of the Kiddush Friday night. In fact, it's not the Nusach, right? Right? We say Vaychulu, which we learned tonight is also not Me'ikra. It's not part of the Kiddush, but it's only because our family wasn't davening Meir Friday night with us, so we have to repeat that. But I was trying to be medayik from this Rambam, that the Rambam may hold different from other poskim. We'll see if the Tzurba goes into it. That Havdalah is midoraisa as well. Now, Tosfos of the Rambam maintain that the obligation to use wine is rabbinic. And this position is supported by the Gemara in Shabbos 23b. The Gemara states that for Shabbos Chanukah, one can only afford candles to light, or have wine for Kiddush, should purchase Shabbos candles and then Chanukah candles. Both of those mitzvahs take precedence over wine for Kiddush. Because we learned already that Shabbos candles is for Shalom Bayis. We know Chanukah is Pesumei Nisa, right? Lighting Shabbos candles is Shalom Bayis. Chanukah is Pesumei Nisa, which goes way above other mitzvahs. This sort of precedence makes sense if the obligation for reciting Kiddush on wine is midrabanan, because lighting Shabbos candles is only Rabbana. Lighting Chanukah candles is only Rabbana. If saying Kiddush over wine Friday night would have been Deraisa, the precedence, the Kedima would have been for wine on Shabbos. So the Ran appears to disagree with this Tosfos and Rambam. The Ran questions the ruling of the Gemara based upon the Gemara in Pesachim, and explains that although Kiddush is a biblical obligation, whereas lighting is only rabbinic, Kiddush may be recited over the challah when necessary. The imtomer v'hechi dachin and Kiddush shayom daraisa mishum ner beisa v'ner Chanukah. How can we override the Kiddush and not have wine for Kiddush because of rabbinic laws of Shalom Bayis and Ner Chanukah? Yeshlomer to lo dachinan lei. We're not being doicha. You can say Kiddush. You can make Kiddush on bread, as it says in Pesachim Kovot. El di lo mishum Shalom Bayis or Pesuvei Nusa mitzvah namufcher adiv tfei bechamra. So it's better to perform, if it wasn't for Shalom Bayis and Pirsumei Nisa, it's better to perform Kiddush with wine. Because it says, Achrei alayayin b'knisaso. The Ran seems to imply that one must declare the sanctity of Shabbos verbally together with either wine or bread in order to fulfill the biblical obligation, which was not like the Rambam, right? Which would contrast with the assumption of the Rambam and Tosfos, that reciting Kiddush on wine is only rabbinic. See, Rashi, who appears to refer to reciting Kiddush on wine also as part of the mitzvah deraisa, and the Ravon cited by the Shagas Aryeh assumes that the Rashba also agrees. And the Tashbates also takes this approach. So you see that there are opinions that having wine during Kiddush is a biblical requirement. The Beis Yosef writes similar to the Ran. And although other Rishonim such as Rashi, Ravan, and Rashba appear to maintain that the obligation to recite Kiddush on wine or challah is deraisa, the Bach assumes that the Ran and Beis Yosef could not have intended their words literally, that reciting wine is midaraisa. Because of Beis Yosef, Avagav the Kiddush Hayom deraisa, and even though Kiddush is deraisa and Echadek and Rabbanan, even the Efshel the Kiddush bepas, since you can make Kiddush on bread, akdumi shemen l'ner Chanukah. Akdumi shemen l'ner Chanukah odiv, that oil for ner Chanukah, you should go and, if you only have enough money for ner Chanukah or for wine, buy the ner Chanukah. Because the Beis Yosef, like the Ran, says you can make Kiddush on bread, so you can have your kikinated too. Lashon Zekos Ran. The Bach notes that the Ran said like the Beis Yosef. Umashma desvir le Kiddush deraisu alayayin olapas. It seems that the Ran holds that Kiddush on wine or bread is deraisa. Says the Bach v'lo nehira. This is not clear. The Kiddush deraisa eno ela bepeh below pas v'lo yayin. He says the bottom line is the biblical command of Kiddush. You don't need bread and you don't need wine. It's Zachar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho, Zikaron dvarim ka'amar. It's just reciting words. So how is the Bach going to resolve this? Efshar loymar, the Masha Kasvu Aranu Beis Yosef, the Lomidche Kiddush deraisa, that really Kiddush deraisa is not being pushed off, the Efshar l'Kiddush Yarifta, because you can do it on bread, is lav davka rifta ka'amar. He didn't davka mean that you have to do it on bread. El Ritzon Omar, the Efshar l'Kiddush b'azkar b'peh below yayin, v'huadin below rifta. So the Bach sort of like stands it on its head. The Bach says that what they're saying there is that you can make Kiddush without anything. They mentioned it because if you don't have wine, they instituted to recite Kiddush over bread, but not that it's required. So according to the Bach, the Ran and the Beis Yosef mean that one fulfills the mitzvah deraisa of Kiddush when reciting the bracha sanctifying Shabbos, even when no wine is available. In which case one would recite Kiddush on Challah. Rav Moshe Levi agrees that the Beis Yosef would not have taken a position contrary to the Rambam quoted above. But Rav Moshe Levi explains the Beis Yosef's wording differently. Since the primary of Kiddush is biblical, since the primary mitzvah of Kiddush is biblical, we would have expected that even the rabbinic aspects of Kiddush, such as using wine, take precedence over lighting Hanukkah candles, which is entirely rabbinic, right? At least here, the wine is being recited over a mitzvah that's midaraisa. The Sefer Menuchas Ava, the Fianius Daiti, in his humble opinion, Nira, Shagam Aran, the Shulchan Aruch, Moidel is the Beis Yosef, Shadochik Lomar. It would be hard to say Shemaran, Shu Neman Beis Shel Rambam Kiyadua, who follows the Rambam on everything. would just argue with him on his own. To say, not like the Rambam, that Kiddush is just words. Uparat das rov kechol harishonim shekiddush layayin emin haTorah, ela b'divrei sofrim. Because most of the Rishonim hold that the yayin is only mirabonan. The kach kosav barana beis Yosef ba'atzmo b'simin reishayin beis b'dinei kiddush. Rak tzarich lomer desfir le'maran da'oil v'kiddush yikor min haTorah. Since the wine is being used to recite Kiddush min haTorah lachen chamir tfei min Chanukah shikor min rabban. He was suggesting that that's why he would recommend buying wine for Kiddush more than their Chanukah. So there's broad consensus among the Achronim that the obligation to recite Kiddush over wine is rabbinic. The Magen Avraham takes us a step further and writes that the mitzvah deraisa of Kiddush is even fulfilled through reciting Ma'ariv Friday night in Shmona Esrei. Nearly the b'deraisa b'Kiddush Omer b'Tfilas Sagi. When you say Vaychulu and Makadosh Shabbos there, you were Makayim Kiddush. The Krok Ksiv Zachor Sema Shabbos, or he Zachor, so he mentioned it. Now, there's another requirement, Kiddush b'Makam Suda, that Kiddush should be recited with that Rabbanan Taknu. That's a rabbinic law. K'moshe Mavur Siman Reish Lamed Tes, Chem Mavur B'Toisfes, Shekosvu Rabbeinu Tam, Mi she'ein lo yayin lo yikadosh klal, who said that if you don't have wine, don't recite Kiddush. The Kasha, says the Magen Avraham, Chiyakor mitzvah say deraisa, just because you don't have wine? Ela al korchacha didai b'tfila. Or the Magen Avraham is saying that you don't have to be makadesh on the wine because you already made kiddush when you daven ma'ariv. V'od daminon ki kiddush, ma kiddush avagav the makadesh b'tzlusa. We say Havdalah atachon and tanu. So Havdalah is like kiddush. Just like kiddush is recited during prayer, Havdalah is reciting during prayer. So what are the nafkaminas? There are several practical ramifications to the question of whether the biblical obligation of Kiddush can be fulfilled verbally without wine. The Mishnah Berurah writes that one who is unsure as to whether he intended to fulfill his obligation through hearing Kiddush from another, or he is unsure whether the other intended to fulfill the mitzvah on his behalf as well, you don't have to recite the Kiddush again. Im Safek lo im Kiddush o lo. If he's a Safek, whether he made Kiddush or not, Eino tzarich lachzor l'kadosh. The Sfeikid Rabbanan l'kula. If you're in doubt about a rabbinic law, you don't have to recite it again. Gam de cotton, shegiach lechinuch, yochel hotzi lefizeh, afilu l'gadol b'kiddush, im hagadol lispal kfar. If the gadol davened already, the cotton can be yotzei the adult, because they're both on the same level. Remember, we said Kiddush ala Suda or Kiddush ala Yayin is only rabbinic. A minor has mitzvahs chinuch, which is rabbinic. Now the adult has mitzvahs chinuch. And so the cotton can be yotzei. The Biur Halacha agrees that one may fulfill the biblical obligation verbally, but he questions whether it is possible to fulfill this obligation by davening Ma'ariv. The two problems he raises with the idea of the Magen Avraham as follows. The Gemara says that one must mention Yitzias Mitzrayim in Kiddush, and that doesn't appear in our Amida for Ma'ariv. According to the accepted halacha, mitzvahs require intent, and usually one does not intend to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush during Tefillah. Right? Odra isi lo ora b'din zeh. La isa b'psochim kuf yud zayin. On Ravacha bar Yaakov. Tzorach laskir yitzis mitzrayim b'kiddush hayom. Ksivacha zocher, ksivas uman tizkor. But there is no yitzis mitzrayim in the tefillah of Ma'ariv. And Masharti od b'panya da'ala kaimelon the mitzvah shrichas kavona And usually people are not having kavanah for Kiddush during Shemona Esrei. The Chafetz Chaim, the Mishnah Berurah, takes the opposite approach of his conclusion to Bir Halacha, as the Mishnah Berurah states that one may delay Kiddush if one is not hungry, since one has already fulfilled the mitzvah deraisa with the recital of Meir. Okay. Rav Moshe Levi recites the first difficulty raised by the Bir Halacha, as although one must mention Yetzias Mitzrayim during Kiddush, it's also rabbinic, not biblical. Maybe the recitation of Yetzias Mitzrayim doesn't prevent you from being Yotze the mitzvah of Kiddush midaraisa. Because of Achidah b'sheilus v'tshuvas Chaim Sha'ol. The Kafas Chaim resolves the second difficulty about Kavona, explain that one who davens does have sufficient intent to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush. Zeka shekasavnu diminatora yotzi dechovis Kiddush b'mashi yizkir Shabbos b'tach tefillah. That which is written, that you can fulfill your biblical obligation for Kiddush with tefillah, Hagan de Kaimel the mitzvahs sheikhos kavana, even though we have a principle that mitzvahs require kavana, kamar shenemar in Siman Sam, with tefillah lo kivan l'shem Kiddush, and during daven he didn't have kavana l'shem Kiddush, kivan the kavanah so l'shem tefillah Shabbos, but he had kavana that is tefillah with Shabbos, uvid tefillah Shabbos tzarich laskir bo Shabbos, memela yotzinami yedei kavanas Kiddush. He says the Kaf HaChaim that you were yotzei because you meant you're davening a Shabbos tefillah, and therefore that kavanah is adequate. In other words, since the Torah obligation of Kiddush is merely to make a verbal declaration regarding Shabbos, and making such a declaration is integral to Shabbos prayers, the intent to recite Shabbos prayers is equivalent to the intent to perform the biblical mitzvah of Kiddush. The Chassam Sofer writes that on Yom Kippur, as we do not recite Kiddush at home, we should actively intend to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush during Tefillah. We do mention Yetzias Mitzrayim in the Tefillah. However, he adds that on a regular Shabbos, one should not have that intent, as the ideal mitzvah should be formed over a cup of wine. There's another problem. I'm not sure it's going to be mentioned here, but if the husband has in mind to be Yotzei Kiddush with the Tefillah and Ma'ariv, and then he comes home, he can still make Kiddush because there's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan to make Kiddush ala kos. But the problem is that's only midrabanan. His wife has a chiyuv d'oraisa to hear Kiddush. And it's questionable whether your Kiddush, which is now only on a rabbinic level, can be Yotze your wife who needs Kiddush on a d'oraisa level.
But don't we say that you can make Kiddush many times of the concept of arevos? So that problem obviously has been solved because you can make Kiddush a number of times for different people because of arevos. Even though that same problem would apply, but obviously we don't credit it.
It's a good ha'ara. The only thing is, yes, because it's a Rashi Rosh Hashanah Chavtes Oman Aleph on the bottom there, where certain mitzvahs, right? What does Arevis allow you? That even though you've been Yotzei already, you can be Yotzei somebody else because you have a din of Arevis. Okay.
Kiddush is one of them.
The Kiddush is one of them. There's no question. Kiddush is one of them. Kiddush is one of them. So you want to say that even though he was Mekayim already midaraisa, okay, but you have this thing of Kiddush ala kos is rabbinic.
I mean, for example,
You want to say when you say the Kiddush, midin arevis, you should be able to be yotz your wife even on a deraisa dika level. Okay,
and evidence of that is And well, Havdalah, you can't make it more than once. I mean, you can only do it once, which is why we have a tinner, not a tinner, but we have someone who doesn't have to make Kiddush for his family, make Havdalah in Shul. So Havdalah can only make once. You can't be Yotzei others. But Kiddush is different.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand. I follow that, Yaakov. Kiddush, Havdalah is connected to Kiddush. The same
Right.
chiyuvim, you just saw the Rambam. He compares Havdalah to Kiddush. That din of Arevis should apply to Havdalah as well as Kiddush.
But
And,
halacha, it
and in
does.
fact, we say Atachon Ein Tanu in Shul. So we're Mavdil. Then we come home and Mavdil again. Why wouldn't we be doing that al Arevis?
Well, if Arevus was permissible, why is it that we have someone who doesn't have to be Yotze his family, make Havdalah in Shul? The reason we do that, you don't have an adult who has a family at home make Havdalah in Shul. If your Shul makes Havdalah, and that's our dozen.
Yeah, we have our shamis who doesn't have a family makes Havdalah.
Right. Why? Because that you cannot do because of Arevus. There's a special halacha by Havdalah that you can't make it twice. If you've been Yotze, you can't be Motze your family.
But that doesn't, but why not? We have to understand that din. Why doesn't it follow the din of Arevus? Here, let me bring the Gemara. 1 second. This is the way we used to learn here when we used to do it in my home. Mamish like a chavrusa. Here. Rosh Hashanah, Chavtes Amud Aleph. So, Omer Ravuna Latzmo Motzi, Omer Rav Nachman Ravuna Maishna Lacherim Delo Osi Tzad Avdus, Umefik Tzad Cheres Latzmo, Nami Lo Osi, Mavi Tzad Cheres today, El Omer Av Latzmein and Motzi. Here. Rav Zera, Kol HaBrocha is Kulon, Afal Pi Sheyotza Motzi. All brachos, even though you've been Yotze already, you could be Motzi somebody else. Chutz mi birchas halechem u birchas hayayin. If you're going to make a motzi or make a bracha on wine, then im lo yotza motzi, but vim yotza ain't a motzi. Now, afal pi sheyotza motzi. Why? Sharei Rashi, Sharei Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh LeMitzvos. But Shar birchas haperis v'reichni she'ein choyve ela she'osur lanus min ha'olam hazeh below bracha u'v'zu ein kan harevus she'ein choyve ala adam lo lisani v'lo levarich. On a birchas nenin, it doesn't apply. So if I want to be yotzi somebody for a bar mitzvah mizonos, if I've already made a mizonos and eat my cookie, I can't be yotzi him. I can be yotzi him if I have not been motzi yet. But when it comes to mitzvahs like Kiddush or other brachos, I could be motzi other people. So why would Havdalah be different than Kiddush?
I think it has to do with the fact that there's.
Well, by the way, we're going to learn it. We're going to learn
Yeah.
it in Tzurba, but it might be in quite a while. So what were you saying, Yaakov?
I think it has to do with the fact that women are not. It's a suffix where the women are obligated.
Yeah.
In
Women do not make Havdalah.
Right.
They grow a mustache. They grow a mustache if they do.
Right.
No, they don't
But,
drink
yeah.
the wine.
Yeah, so because a woman is not mechayiv in it, so a man who's mechayiv in the mitzvah has to make it for her. But if you've already done it, it's now not arevus. Arevus is only for someone who's mechayiv in the mitzvah. But since for women they're not mechayiv in the mitzvah, you can't be yotze them on miyad arevus, if I remember correctly.
That may be.
That's-
It's a good, we have some homework to do.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but you have another ha'ara. Rabbi Krauss always used to tell us, don't have kavana during Ma'ariv, because you're going to be, if you do, you're going to have been yotze already midoraisa. When you go home, your kiddush alakos is only midrabanan, and your wife needs a kiddush on a doraisa dikalam. You want to say, what's the problem? There's arevus. So we have to look that up as well. So let's see the Chassam Sofer. Ulefi ze lamad dekayim la mitzvah strichas kavana. Tzarach lechavin betfilas Yom HaKippurim bein b'chol bein b'Shabbos. Let's say sidei choy v'schira. He says, since we don't make a kiddush on Yom Kippur, but there's still a mitzvah. It's a yontiv. There's a mitzvah of zachreyu, so you have to do it during the davening. He says on a regular Shabbos, b'Shabbos the amal lo yichavin, let's say it's betfilah. K'tei sheyetze yidei choves kiddush deraisa ben hamuvchar b'mokom suda alakos k'tikun chazal k'nir lefi ani daiti. Some Sofer goes on. Okay, that's just the repetition. The Shevet HaLevi, Rav Shmuel Vosner, agrees with the Chassam Sofer that our regular Shabbos one should not have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush during the Amidah of Ma'ariv. He raises the possibility that by default, one intends to fulfill the mitzvah only through Kiddush over a cup of wine, in contrast to the view of the Kaf HaChaim quoted above. He says, you should fulfill the mitzvah daf in the Mamarshik said to do it during tefillah. He says that's difficult. He says better to do like Chazal that says choves kiddush benusach hakiddush yispei yitzis mitzrayim. Better to do it at home when you could say Zech Mitzrayim and you can do it over a kos. Because we mentioned those in the Ma'ariv. If in general, if you just daven a regular davening, could be that you're not yotzei, or tzarach hepech kavana, or do you have to have like an opposite? Like you have to have dafka. I am not fulfilling the mitzvah of kiddush. Yesh lo b'zeh tuva. He says, I'm not sure. We have to evaluate this. Yesh lo medachshol shekvar tiknu kiddush. Ni gam tefillah Shabbos me'ein kiddush hayom. I mean, davening is a little bit like kiddush because we mentioned Shabbos mikol makom mistamas somech al kiddush hayom shel kiddush. That you do sort of, you're going to make kiddush the next day on wine. Yesh lo problems that ain't kan makom. It's assumed that you're going to rely on the kiddush that you make at home. Thus, it is debatable whether one should intend to fulfill the mitzvah of kiddush during Ma'ariv of a regular Shabbos, or whether one should specifically intend not to. The Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa agrees that if one is unable to recite kiddush normally for any reason, let's say he's ill, he has no wine, no challah, then you should intend to fulfill the mitzvah during the Amidah. Rav Yitzchak Yosef writes that in cases where one is unsure if he fulfilled the mitzvah of kiddush properly, such as if one is a guest in a place where the person reciting kiddush does not perform the mitzvah correctly, you still don't need to repeat Kiddush again since he may have fulfilled his obligation when reciting the Amidah. If one has not yet recited Mariv, but knows that he may not fulfill Kiddush properly, Rav Yosef writes that one should add a mention of the Zecher Yitzis Mitzrayim to his Amidah. HaMitarech b'Shabbos Eitzel Makirim She'enim B'Kiyim B'Halacha Kol Kach. You're invited as a guest to somebody that they're not that baki in halacha. You're not sure that he's going to make Kiddush correctly. This topic, Shema Makadish Lo Kivein Lo Hotzi Yidei Cholas Kiddush. He does the guy that you're he doesn't know how to be motzi other people. He's not even sure if he made Kiddush. Eino Makadish Misofik. You don't repeat it. Shemachav is Paul Arvis V'Yeshamim B'Shat Tzedei Cholas Kiddush Minat Torah B'Tfilah. There are those people who say that you are Mekayim mitzvahs Kiddush in Tfilah, so you don't have to do it again. And therefore it's Sveik Alahakil. Shema Kiddush, maybe he already made Kiddush. Shema Yatzidei Chayva B'Tfilah. Mikol Makom Tov Sheishma Kiddush B'Mishim V'Vadai Lo Kiddush. It's better that you should hear Kiddush from somebody who had not made Kiddush yet. V'Yitzei Choves Kiddush. And that way he'll be fulfilled. In this topic, in Kiddush, Adan Lo Yispal Arvis, he didn't have Marv yet. Yikaven B'Tfilah, so let's say Tzedei Choves Kiddush. V'Yomer B'Tfilah Zeichel Yitzvi Mitzrayim. You should add into the Shemona Esrei Zeichel Yitzvi Mitzrayim. That's a pellet. Who's there? Okay. That's a pellet to change the nusach of Shemona Esrei.
Yeah,
Oh, great, thank you. I'm going to stop here because I don't think I can finish all the way to the end. So we'll leave this for next week. And we will start volume 17. Everybody has volume 17? I think I distributed volume 17 to everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. So we have a number of questions to resolve. The issue of Avdallah.